Hi, welcome to another Sneak Peek Saturday. My name is Jenny, and today we are going to read The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. This is also a novel, and it says here, everyone has a dark side. I thought it was really creepy. Alrighty, so like always, I'm going to read you the inside here of the flap so you have a little bit of an idea what this book is going to be about. Let's get started. So, two sisters, one truth, but which one of them knows it? There's only been one time that Rose couldn't stop me from doing the wrong thing, and that was a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Signed, Fern Castle. My therapist asked me to talk about my earliest traumatic memory. It was a year Mom took us to the library. Oh, Fern refers to it with such fondness, how the library became her home, how she discovered the hidden worlds with the pages of books, how that year is the reason she became a librarian. It makes me want to scream. Sometimes I wonder if, like those choose-your-own-adventure books that we used to devour, the two of us were living parallel, alternative lives. Rose Castle. Fern Castle works in her local library. She has dinner with her twin sister, Rose, 3 nights a week, and she avoids crowds, bright lights, and loud noises as much as possible. Fern has a carefully structured life, and disrupting her routine can be dangerous. When Rose discovers that she cannot get pregnant, Fern sees her chance to pay her sister back for everything Rose has done for her. Fern can have a baby for Rose. She just needs to find a father. Simple. Fern's mission will shake the foundation of the life she has carefully built for herself and stir up dark secrets from the past in this riveting, rich, and shocking story of unexpected love. Let's see. A Good Sister. Okay. So the first chapter is called Journal of Rose Ingrid Castle. So it's been 3 months since Owen left. Left me, like so many things in the adult world, it's all a bit gray. He took a job in London, a work opportunity, ostensibly. It's not that I wasn't invited, but it wasn't clear to both of us that I couldn't go. That's another thing about the adult world, responsibilities. In my case, one particular responsibility, Fern. But let me backtrack, because it sounds like I'm blaming her. I'm not. The problems between Owen and me are 100% unequivocally entirely my fault. I committed the most cardinal of marital sins. I changed. Overnight, as soon as the clock chimed my 27th birthday, in fact, I went from being a well-educated, empowered woman to one of those pathetic women who wanted a baby with such ferocity it drove my husband away. An ovulation kit-wielding, sperm-testing, temperature-taking lunatic. In my previous life, I'd scorned this type of woman from up in my, what I presume to be, fertile ivory tower. Then I'd become one, and I'd pushed until my husband left me. My therapist is right. It is a relief getting these thoughts out of my head and onto paper. In therapy, we hardly talk about Owen at all. Instead, we while away the 50-minute hours talking about my traumatic childhood. According to him, a good way to process trauma and put it behind you is to write it down. That's why he gave me this journal. I'm not convinced it will help, but here I am. Apparently, the people pleaser in me dies hard. The obvious place to start is the night at the river. I was 12. We were camping. Mom and Daniel had been dating for about 6 months, but it was the first time we'd been away anywhere together. Daniel brought Billy, much to my and Fern's delight. We'd forever longed for a brother and all those wonderful traits a brother brought with him: roughhousing, logical arguments, and good-looking friends. And for the first few days, we had a good time. Better than good. It was the closest I'd ever come to being part of a normal family. Daniel taught us to fish. Billy taught us how to play poker. And Mom, she was like a completely different person. She did things like remind us to apply sunscreen and tell us to be careful in the river because the current could be strong. One day, she even rested her arm affectionately around my shoulders as we sat by the fire. She'd never done that before. I'll never forget that. Forget what it felt like, our bodies touching like that. On the last night, Billy, Fern, and I went to the river mouth. The heat of the day hung in the air, and we spent most of the time slapping mosquitoes from our arms. Billy was in the water, the only place to get any relief from the heat. Usually, Fern and I would have joined him, but something was up with Fern that night. She was in one of her moods. I'd wanted to ask her about it all day, but Fern could be volatile when she was upset. I decided it was better to leave it alone. We'd been by the river an hour or so when nature called. Billy was showing no signs of getting out of the water, so I headed deep into the trees. There was no way I was going to let him see me pee. It was slow going. It was pitch black and I was barefoot. I had to watch every step I took. My fear of snakes didn't help matters. Still, I was gone for 5 minutes max. Apparently, that is all it takes. When I returned to the river, Fern was gone. "Fern," I called. "Where are you?" It was strange for her not to be in the spot I left her. It took me a minute to locate her, illuminated by a patch of moonlight in the shallows of the river. She was standing eerily still. Billy was nowhere to be seen. "What are you?" I took a step toward her, and she lifted her hands. Before I could ask what was going on, something rose to the surface of the water besides her, a silver of pale, unmoving flesh. "Fern," I whispered, "what have you done?" Okay, so this was now from Rose, the perspective. And so now we're going over to Fern. Every Tuesday morning at 10:15 a.m., I am stationed at the front desk of the Bayside Public Library. The front desk is usually my least favorite post, but on Tuesday mornings I make an exception so as to have a clear view to the circular meeting room where toddler rhyme time takes place. I enjoy toddler rhyme time, despite its obvious vexing qualities. The noise, the crowd, the unexpected direction of a child's emotions can take at a moment's notice. Today, Linda, the children's librarian, is regaling the toddlers with a vehement retelling of The Three Little Pigs. Imaginatively, she has chosen to forego reading the book and is instead acting the story out, alternately donning a fluffy wolf's head and a softer, squidgy-looking pig's head with pale blue eyes and a protruding snout. At intervals, Linda emits an impressively realistic sounding pig's squeal, so shrill and penetrating that it makes my toes curl in my sneakers. The children on the whole appear enraptured with Linda's recital, the only exceptions being a newborn screaming wildly on its mother's shoulder and a little boy in an orange jumper who covered his ears and buries his face in his grandmother's lap. I too am absorbed in the performance, so much so that it takes me several seconds to register the woman with pointy coral fingernails who appeared at the desk, clutching a stack of books against her hip. I roll my ergonomic chair slightly to the right so I can still see the children, who are now helping Linda blow down an imaginary house of straw. But distractingly, the woman moves with me, huffing and fidgeting and finally clearing her throat. Finally, she clicks her fingernails against the desk. Excuse me. Excuse me, I repeat, rolling the statement around in my head. I feel unlikely that she is actually asking to be excused. After all, patrons are free to come and go as they please in the library. They don't have to ask for the privilege. It is possible, I suppose, that she is asking to be excused for impoliteness, but as I didn't hear her belch or fart, that also seems improbable. As such, I conclude that she has employed the odd social custom of asking to be excused as a means of getting a person's attention. I open my mouth to tell her that she has my attention, but people are so impatient nowadays, and she cuts me off before I can speak. Do you work here? She asks, very rudely. Sometimes the people in the library can be surprisingly dense. For heaven's sake, why would I be sitting behind the desk wearing a name badge if I didn't work here? That said, I acknowledge that I don't fit the stereotypical mold of a librarian. For a start, at 28, I'm younger than the average librarian, 45 according to Librarian's Digest, and I dress more fashionably and colorfully than the majority of my peers. I am partial to soft, bright t-shirts, sparkly sneakers, and long skirts or overalls emblazoned with rainbows or unicorns. I wear my hair in 2 braids, which I loop into a bun above each ear. Not a reference to Princess Leia, though I do wonder if she found the style as practical as I do for keeping long hair out of your face when you are a woman with things to do. And yet, I am most definitely a librarian. Are you going to serve me, young lady? The woman demands. Would you like me to serve you? I ask patiently. I don't point out that she could have saved herself a lot of time by simply asking to be served. The woman's eyes boggle. Why do you think I'm standing here? There are an infinite numbers of reasons, I reply. You are, as you may have noticed, directly adjacent to the water fountain, which is a high-traffic area for the library. You might be using the desks to shuffle documents on your way over to the photocopier. You may be admiring the Monet print on the wall behind me, something I do several times a day. You may have paused on your way to the door to tie your shoelace or to double-check if that person over in the non-fiction section is your ex-boyfriend. You might, as I was before you came along, be enjoying Linda's wonderful rendition of The 3 Little Pigs. I have more examples, many more, but I am cut off by Gail, who approaches the desk hurriedly. May I help you there? Gail has a knack for turning up at opportune times. She has fluffy blonde hair, exceedingly potent perfume, and a thing about bringing me lemons from her lemon tree. I once made a mistake of saying I'd enjoy a slice of lemon in hot water, and since then I've barely gone a day without a lemon from Gail. I tell her to stop, but Rose says people enjoy making themselves useful in these small ways, and the best thing to do is to thank them and throw the lemon away. Bizarre as it sounds, Rose tends to be right about these things. Finally, the woman says, and then launches into a story about how her son left his library books at the beach house and then it got fumigated, so they weren't able to collect the books until yesterday, and now they're incurred a fine. And also she'd like to extend her loan, but the books has 27 reserves on it. 27. As far as stories to get out of fines go, this one is rather benign, I have to say. I spoke with a gentleman recently who explained that his daughter had taken his library copy of Ulysses on a trekking vacation to the Andes, where she'd left it in a mountain village with a mother of newborn twins whose husband had recently passed away. I marveled that an Andean village woman could read English so well as to read Ulysses, not to mention have a desire to read such a book while single-handedly raising her twins on a mountaintop, but before I could ask him much about either, he shuffled away. Gail, of course, waived the fine. I work in the library 4 days a week, plus 2 Sundays a month. If it's not raining, like today, I walk the 35 minutes to work while listening to my audiobook, and I arrive at the library a minimum of 15 minutes before my shift. If it is raining, I catch the bus and arrive at a similar time. I then spend the day recommending books, pressing returns, and avoiding questions about the photocopiers. Depending on the particular day, I might also order new books, set up the conference room for author talks or community meetings, or put together book packages for the home library service. I try to avoid conversations about things other than books, although I'll occasionally indulge Gail in a conversation about her garden and her grandchildren, because Rose says it's polite to do this with people who we like. This is where I'm going to stop. I really love this so far. Again, really easy to read. Again, it's called The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. So this is the spine label. It's in our fiction section in the news section. Right here you can see that, and like always, I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek Saturday, and I see you again in 2 weeks.